Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Philosophy in the Forest. I join you from the big island of Hawaii, and today we will be talking about taste and beauty and how one develops a refined palate. Who is the art critic? And for this, we have David Hume's 1757 essay of the standard of taste. And as we all know, there's a large variety of what we can call taste, good taste, and preference in our world. And according to Hume, beauty isn't something that exists physically in our world, but it's a sentiment. And individuals have the ability to interpret beauty differently. Obviously, not all art critics and not all people have good taste. But in order to be considered a person of impeccable taste, a critic has to develop an appreciation for the delicacy and finery of good craftsmanship. So, like a sommelier in wine, those that are well practiced in judgment of fine art become sort of, according to Hume, they're free of biases and preconceptions about beauty because they're so well trained in recognizing that which is high quality work. These people are people with refined palates, and the individuals who have developed really refined palates are qualified to provide the standard of taste. So, according to Hume, a true critic is a genuine expert whose opinions produce a standard for the evaluation of fine art. So, if we look around in our world, our society is colored with all varieties of tastes and opinions, and everywhere we look, everyone has an opinion about what's good, what's quality, what's beautiful. And what we find is that the standard of beauty changes from time to time. For example, clothing from 100 years ago is very different from today's style, and fashion and style are in constant flux. And this flux is because our ideals of beauty are actually a matter of conjecture. And the standard of taste actually varies from culture to culture and everywhere around the world. And this is according to Hume as well, that beauty is something that is defined by what our local beauty standards are. According to Hume, the beautiful is something that we perceive to be familiar. The more familiar we are with something, the more beautiful it is to us. And people are attracted. They're more able to understand artifacts that they see regularly, and they gravitate towards the familiar. And this causes an aesthetic bias, according to Hume. And those that are prejudiced, also, according to Hume, are poor critics. So there is a dissonance here between the tendency towards what is familiar and how this familiarity creates a bias. And this is a natural prejudice of humankind that Hume notes, and says that the taste of individuals is not upon equal footing, as Hume states. Although there are millions of opinions about beauty and finery, only some are qualified to judge and critique art, according to Hume. So then, continuing on this standard of taste and staying true to, what it is that is excellent. Of the standard of taste, by Hume really notes how challenging it is to define excellence in fine art. Because beauty doesn't have tangible characteristics, but it's just a feeling that we get. You know, the prevailing definition of beauty is something that causes pleasure. You know, it's true that some object will give every individual pleasure. Perhaps it's a flower. Perhaps it's a view of nature. Perhaps it's a sunset. You know, maybe this is an inherent type of beauty. Beauty isn't, though, the quality. It's a concept that dwells in the mind. Beauty is a concept. And every single person has a different idea about beauty. So Hume posits to develop this universal standard of beauty. It requires this open mind, sort of serene and open mind. And beauty takes time to appreciate. And it is true that excellence can be overlooked by an untrained eye. And those that don't know what quality is may not actually be able to recognize it, may not be able to recognize craftsmanship or fine work because they've never seen it. And so even though it's an experience, it's also something that's developed. For a critic of art, anyway, for someone to be considered someone of good taste, they have to develop this through learning, through scholarship, through study. Because a true critic, a true, person of taste is able to recognize the beautiful through experience and observation. They're well trained, and they'll have the same amount of dexterity and skill that goes into producing the art itself is implemented by somebody who's an appreciator of finery and has this impeccable taste. And so to determine beauty then is not simply just this prejudice, but it is this recognition. It has to be studied. Beautiful things have to be reflected upon. And although everybody's born with this sense of beauty, an individual is able to refine their palate and develop something that's like exquisite taste. And so Hume concludes that few people are qualified to judge art. Although all people have this individual definition of beauty, a trustworthy connoisseur is a rare character. For one thing, a true critic is a person with strong aesthetic sensibility. Second, this person is a person who's able to make judgments without bias. And Hume concludes that a competent critic of fine art is well practiced in the art of criticism, arguing that the knowledgeable and trained art critic can make an intelligent analysis concerning the quality of a piece. These critics that are free of biases and preconceptions about beauty are most fitted to present the standard of taste. A true critic is impartial and endowed with this delicate imagination that encourages them to appreciate beauty. So inside of them is this imagination of the beauty itself, and perhaps even the work and dedication that goes into the craftsmanship, the ability to imagine along with the creator the actual process that makes this piece of art what it is, because the art is the piece of art, but without the beholder, without the connoisseur, a connoisseur cultivates their taste through practice, just like an artist cultivates their taste. So a connoisseur views and takes in art, takes in wine, takes in fine food, takes in literature, takes in film, takes in philosophy. And it is in this way that they train themselves to make these analyses, and they become free of these biases and these cultural biases and cultural standards of beauty, and rise to this level of appreciation in the beauty of art that is created, high fashion, fine food, fine wine, a Botticelli painting. How can we appreciate these things? How can we compare a Botticelli to a Titian without having experienced it? How will we know the work of the pre-Raphaelites without having experienced John William Waterhouse's paintings? Without having looked at Picasso's work, without the knowledge of it, how would we have this comparison? And so Hume points out, sadly, that most people never strive to develop a refined standard of taste, and that these people who have not developed this standard of taste, who have not taken the time to take in, the classics like Dizzy Gillespie, Thelonious Monk, Lester Young, Django Reinhardt, the people who don't know who the great artists are in their field, who can't list them off, have no place in critiquing the fine art of those artists. No, the people who do know, gather in salons and speak about it and enjoy each other's commentary, knowing that the other person has put in the time to develop and establish their own sentiment and standard of beauty. And so, according to Hume, the expert is a rarity, and an authentic connoisseur of taste is very valuable to society, because this qualified judge is able to guide others towards sensible fashion. A true critic is a scholar of art and beauty who lends their expertise to society to better appreciate the meaning of art, Hume writes. Though men of delicate taste may be rare, they are easily to be distinguished in society by the soundness of their understanding and the superiority of their faculties above the rest of mankind. So again, though men of delicate taste be rare, they are easily to be distinguished in society by the soundness of their understanding and the superiority of their faculties above the rest of mankind. So Hume believes the standard of taste reconciles debates over fine art, because a genuine connoisseur is reasonable and impartial, and an authority on beauty that can assist the entire world and all of society and encourage others to develop an impartial and refined palate. Thank you all for joining me today on this discussion of 18th century beauty standards and aesthetic philosophy, fashion, and fine taste, and the art of being a connoisseur. Aloha for now.